Hey guys, welcome back to Martha May's Off Topic. I am your host, Martha May, and we have a good one for you this time around. Please welcome back my co-host, Zyron Speaks. Hey babe, how you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing well. I hope everyone had a really good week and weekend. I'm excited for this because this is a really good topic. And so I hope y'all enjoy. Thank y'all for coming back.
Thank you guys so much for sh- um Jesus. Thank you so much for tuning in to us, and be sure to check us out on YouTube at Martha May's Off Topic podcast, and because we have those up now. And so, backtracking to the previous episodes, we were able to kind of just backtrack to episode 1, or the intro. So, yeah, all those are for your listening enjoyment. For those of you who don't have Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever the case is. So, make sure you tune in there and comment on the episode if you should wish to do so. So today's topic, we're going to talk about trauma bonding and its impact, how it happens, what it could look like, some of the things that we've experienced when we've gone through it, and just kind of how to overcome it, if you will. So, Zai, what do you think about when you think of trauma bonding?
I think about like the Navy. And I think about how like whenever you're stuck on a ship on like deployments, underways, duty, but like how things happen, during those and that like brings you and people closer. And I can use like my situation, right? Like whenever
Mm-hmm.
we were out to sea, in 2020, COVID blew up. And so
Mm-hmm.
we were supposed to pull back in the very beginning of April. And I'll never forget like our captain coming over to 1MC as like a couple of days before we were supposed to pull in, like, all right, guys, it happened. Like, we just got told we're not pulling in. We don't know when we're going home. We could be out here for the next couple of months. When I know more information, I'll tell y'all. And I remember like I was in that spot that I was in that moment that announcement happened. I was on the mess decks with people I had never really spoken to. Like I knew of them, we knew of each other, but I'll never forget like when he said that, how we all sat at the table like simultaneously, sitting there like, damn, wow. And somehow we formed bonds and you know, I don't know if those bonds would have ever gotten stronger, but I know in that moment, because that shit happened to us and we were all like, what the fuck? We all clung together in a way. And I built some really nice friendships off of that. Trauma bonding doesn't always have to be just negative. Yes, it comes from something negative, but usually, something positive is happening around it sometimes, which is why you bond in that way. I don't know if that's making sense, but um, that was like the one that I've had that I was like, it's like three good friendships, and me and one of them, we done took a 19-hour road trip together now. Like we got close because of that, and I'm thankful. But yeah, what about you?
I've also created quite a few bonds, because of the Navy,
Hmm.
and they've been traumatic in a sense that this trauma is us going through such a exciting, such a ever changing, such a chaotic world together, but we create the bonds how you created those bonds with the people on the mess decks unexpectedly. I've created those bonds with the people that I'm now lifelong friends with as well. So I love what you said about it not being all bad. I think what happens when it's bad is that you when you repeat that cycle, and that's what trauma bonding is, right? So like
Hmm.
that cycle of bad and good and bad and good, kind of like how when you're in an abusive relationship, it is something bad happens, and then the abuser makes up for it by apologizing profusely, telling you that you're their soulmate, telling you this, telling you that, and then they turn around and do that abusive thing again, and then the cycle just keeps happening. Now, what I love what you said, because I think what you were talking about was you guys kind of ending the cycle of trauma and starting on a new path of good, starting on a new path of friendship, that you got close because of this trauma, but then you got even closer when you exited that cycle.
Yes.
And that is how you kind of overcame that trauma. So, and that's how I overcame the trauma as well. So, another example of the trauma would be like when you're on a ship, and you mentioned this before, you're on it and you're out on deployment for however long. And so you're without your family, you're without, sometimes communication from the outside, this or that, right? Things that people don't necessarily go without on a day-to-day basis. And it's definitely most likely uncomfortable situation.
Yeah. And so I want to piggy off of that, like that part where you don't have communication or you're not able to reach out to people. We started helping other ships do like missions and stuff. And so we would go without emails, like phone calls, like we would do that for like weeks. And I'll never forget like the first time I was able to FaceTime my mom. We just anchored off the coast,
Mm-hmm.
and like I couldn't even speak. Like it was just straight tears. And I was sitting next to somebody who was doing the exact same thing. And like after the phone calls, we just kind of sat there and, kind of talked about some things. And I'm like, this is happening and we're forming these bonds because, we're so miserable that we're trying not to be. I wrote that that's what happens with sometimes trauma bonding. Like misery loves company. You going through this, I'm going through this. And so, we just feed off of each other, but we feed negativity into each other. However, in some instances, we were able to like actually try to make positive things come out of it, and lean
I
on each
love
other
that.
as crutches
I
because
love
it
that.
was hard. And again, I done formed some bonds off of that. One of them is like a near death experiences, and so I'll never forget like one of our people falling off the ladder wells and shit. And like I was like, oh my god, like
Yeah. Like,
uh,
we had, we had a run-in with the Russians, and I feel
mhm.
like I can freely say that because it became a news article. We had a couple run-ins with the Russians, and they were trying to like play chicken with us, and whatever would it like. But it's dangerous because when you're going fast and you can not necessarily lose control, but you can definitely see them trying to like do like this with like collide on a collision course with us if they don't slow down and we don't slow down either. And so my captain came on the 1MC and was like, "This is what being in the Navy is about. Like if you're scared, like you should be scared because they're not our friends. Like they're not here to, you know what I'm saying? They're not our allies. So and essentially like they're here to hurt us so that we don't go home to our families." And I was like, fuck. I'm in my rack. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I had a nightmare that night.
Damn, did I really sign up for this? Like,
Bro, for
yeah,
real. So yeah, and so I think Sam, I clung to her so fucking hard, okay? Because her and I think the people in my shop, like, it, I'm laughing because it's so retarded because you don't expect, and this can happen from anything, any kind of experience, right? But something like came out of that when we finally would hit a port, and the port visit would be so nice, but then we turn around and go back on the ship for like 30 days
Mhm.
and create those traumatic experiences again. So, and it would happen like that over and over again. Like 2 weeks go by and then we hit a port and then another 2 weeks go by on the ship. And you know what I'm saying? It's just created all over again. And I think that, those are the type of bonds that I've created. And I think I like what you said particular, and I'll say it again, like how you've exited your trauma cycle and then you've created a whole new path to your friendship. I think that that is so powerful because you saw something else that could be taken kind of out of that bond, like something positive that could be created out of that. And I think that's so powerful because it's just, you can get so caught up in that traumatic cycle.
So I take my friend Carlos when you say that, and he was one of the people that I ended up sitting next to in that moment, like when everything was said, like, oh shit, like damn. And so even the day we finally got back to land, months later, when we finally got back, um, of course, everybody go their own ways. We're trying to really like just really decompress, like being on a box in the water for like
Yep.
months.
Yep.
Like, and because of COVID, there was no port visits. There was no, we're going to pull in here. We didn't get that. Like, they
Right.
sent fuel, food, and water and stuff to us out on the water. Like, that's how we did it. But, like, even when we pulled in, we all somehow, some way, some of us still ended up back together that night, like back in the same room, back in each other's presence, because it had became comfortable for us. Like we found ways to make each other comfortable and okay, and help each other, just get through things. And we were able to decompress and talk. But then we started talking about our plans for the year. For one, coming back and COVID shutting everything down had us all like, what the hell? Like, is this a zombie town? Like, what is this? Especially
Right.
for California, like that really threw me off. However, we were able to like make like little things happen for each other, and it just. I have an article,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so it says, "What is a trauma bonding relationship?" A trauma bonding relationship is reflective of an attachment created by repeated physical or emotional trauma with intermittent positive reinforcement, according to licensed psychologist Liz Powell. But simply in a relationship with trauma bonding, there's a lot of really terrible stuff happening, and then occasionally really great stuff happening, they say. Oh, where does trauma bonding occur? Trauma bonding isn't only happening in romantic relationships. You can see trauma bonding signs in dynamics that include fraternity hazing, military training, kidnapping, child abuse, political torture, cults, prisoners of war, and concentration camps.
Military training.
Boot camp. Boot camp.
Yes.
Boot camp is
I'm
the
showering
one.
with a bunch of naked females.
Like,
I'm like, and then I'm getting screamed at for taking too long in the shower.
I had this friend, his name, I'm gonna call him CJ,
Uh-huh.
and I still love CJ to this day. But man, we were bunkmates, and so we would get in trouble like as a division. But me and that man, like through this shit, we were finding ways to laugh and giggle and joke. And like, it's crazy because it's supposed to be dead silent, and you got us over here. I feel like we started using like our own telepathic ways to communicate because we would still be like, but it's because it was so bad that we were like trying to make light of these situations. And so like whenever it says like something negative happening, usually something positive is happening like with it. And it's like that was us, like
Right.
just
Yeah.
trying to find light in some way somehow. It is so funny.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And so so for those of you who may have had have had a traumatic bond or um, are in a bond still that is kind of traumatic for you, or maybe you're in an abusive relationship or whatever the case is. I have an article here too, and I'll link it in the show notes
Hmm.
and I'll link the other article that Zai was talking about as well in the show notes. But some ways that the article is talking about overcoming the bond is keeping a journal. One of the ways is keeping a journal. So writing things down that have happened each day so that you can notice those patterns. You can kind of, when you look back and read it, you can get an outsider's perspective on the things that have happened. So you're not blind to them. You know what I mean? You're not blind to what your partner is doing and then, excuse it later down the line because it's like, I see this is happening. And you're not getting a pass anymore type thing. Let's see. And then that allows you to kind of consider the relationship in another perspective, which is another tip it has here too. Talk to loved ones. Now, I understand that some relationships that we have with our loved ones aren't the best, right? And I know a lot of us can attest to that. However, usually, even if it's something that you don't want to hear, your loved ones can kind of go to bat for you when it comes to you being in a relationship or a thing that you don't like. So for example, if I were to tell my mom about a guy who is garbage, she would tell me things like you deserve better, or he doesn't deserve you, or you know what I'm saying? And my mom gets very, very passionate about stuff like that. So I know that she's someone that I could go to if that were to happen to me. So definitely utilize a loved one who has your best interest at heart. And then another one, this is a good one. It says, avoid self-blame. Believing you caused the abuse or brought it on yourself can make it harder to exercise your autonomy, effectively keeping you in the relationship. So, thinking about things you could have done better, or you shouldn't have said that to him, or it's your fault that he feels like that, and blah, blah. Like, no, babe, it's not your fault. What he decides to, like, he is a grown ass man, or she is a grown ass woman. What they decide to do is solely up to them, and you have nothing to do with it.
And it's so funny because I be on TikTok like heavy, and so I remember seeing like people talk about like how they got out of these abusive relationships and how it took so long and how they stayed there. And as I was just looking at this, it says there is an intense connection due to the fact that there is a strong hormonal connection between the abuser and the victim. The feeling is that you need the other person in order to survive. And
Mm.
so when it said that, I was like, wow, because it's almost like, with kids, for example, right? If they are being abused by their parents, those are still their parents. They're somehow still want to make their parents happy. They show that on TV all the time, like,
Right.
parents not doing good by the kids, but the kids still trying to, make their parents happy and make them smile because they feel like they need them. That is a parent kid type thing. You need your parent
Right.
for the most part. Um, and so in those relationships, I'm sure it's like the same thing because y'all done went through some stuff. You're just used to having this person around all the time. And so I think that's the part of like stepping out of your comfort zone, and it's going to get uncomfortable. I think any breakup is uncomfortable with a friend, anybody that you have just been through stuff with time after time. I'm kind of going through that, well, with a friend of mine that I have for years and years and years, and we bonded for so many reasons and just go so far back. It's like it's different not having this person in my life no more. Um, and it's hard. It is in so many moments it's still hard. But however, it's just like, okay, well, if this ain't good no more, then it's not good no more.
Right. I want to harp on what you said about the kid and parent relationship. I, and I'm writing this down because I didn't want to forget it, but do you think that minorities have or could be experiencing this just a little bit more or a little bit differently than, say, for example, well off groups? Because my thought process is that if I'm a minority and I'm not minority, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say minority. I meant like lower class. So lower class groups of people, do you think that they experience it more or differently than kind of upper class, middle class? Because my thought process is that I don't have a lot I don't have a lot. So what I make,
Resources.
right, I don't have a lot of resources. I don't make a lot of money. I don't have a lot of support. So I need my mom. I need my support. So I need this abusive ass husband I have, or I need this abusive ass wife that I have. And so I don't have anything else. Maybe I don't have a degree, or maybe I don't have this, or maybe I don't have a car, or whatever the case is. And so go ahead.
So take Diary of a Mad and Black Woman, right? And
Mm.
so she helped him build up his wealth and helped him run his business. And then all of a sudden he was like, I don't want you no more, I want this. And
Ooh.
he kicks her to the curb and she's like, I don't know what to do. I did everything for him. I have nothing without him. And also Sheila and Why Did I Get Married with Mike when she was at the mountain, I have no life without him. I did
Mm.
everything. Like she was traumatically bonded to him because that was her person. That was all as shitty as he did her, she felt safe there. She felt comfortable there. And so I feel like it's situational. Whenever you've done something that's so much with the person, upper class, middle class, or lower class, it's like whenever they're taking that from you or it's being broken, it's like, oh my gosh, like why is this happening to me? Now with I would say with the lower class, I can see it definitely being worse, especially if you're not making enough. Either one of y'all making enough to get by, but with each other joined, that's what helps y'all out. So whenever that
Mm.
breaks and you have to pick up more slack, I'm sure it's harder, and it makes you more subject to want to try to work it out and stick it out.
Right.
I will say that is one reason I'm so thankful that I've been able to survive on my own, doing it by myself, because I could not
Mm-hmm.
imagine like somebody being like in my life, us doing everything like this. And so whenever it's taken away, it just hurts in so many different ways. And I'm affected by it because we see that on TV. Literally, those two movies show like how you can be traumatically bonded to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's taken from you, it's like, oh, I have nothing. And then what?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
I have nothing. So it's funny because my mom went through that with her husband or ex-husband. And so she he made a lot of the money, and like, you know, he owned the house that they lived in. And so she was super fearful, and it was a conversation we had after the fact, but she was super fearful that of taking that leap of faith and kind of forcing herself to leave a situation or not fight for a situation like that anymore. Like, I have to take this leap of faith because, one, what example am I setting to my children? What example am I setting for myself? And what am I going to be able to say 5 years from now when I've taken this leap of faith, or when I haven't taken this leap of faith and now I'm miserable? So I think that's very, very, that's a very good point.
So these are common trauma bonding signs. What
Okay.
keys to understand about a trauma bond relationship is that it can be healthy because it is not equal. Oftentimes, when folks are trauma bonding, it may look and feel safe for some, says Eborn, but there is a lot of inconsistency within the relationship and it can be extremely dysfunctional. There's always a form of manipulation that is involved. And so, here are some signs. of trauma bonding. The relationship is moving at an accelerated pace. You feel very close, even though you haven't known each other for long. You make huge life changes for a relatively new relationship. You put time and effort into the romantic relationship at the cost of friendships, family, and other relationships. You
Mm.
have an extreme fear of leaving the relationship, and you feel like they're the only one who can fulfill your needs. I really want to touch on you feel very close, even though you haven't known each other for very
Oh
long.
my God. Yes. Talk about it.
The ship, like
Yes.
in those moments, in those moments, we're all like, "This is my best friend now. I've known you for forever. I've known you for a month. I've known you for a week." And
No,
we
yeah, exactly.
I don't think of our relationship nowhere near as a trauma bond because we were just talking about music and shit, we were just feeding each other energy. However, it's like when we started talking, we
Hmm.
started talking, and same thing with Carlos. Um, I'll never forget when I went to Chicago, and I met another girl there. We were doing the same thing, and like that was another one of the bonds that because we in a really shitty place, we got really close. And
Yes.
you can see that in friendships, relationships, hell, work
Yeah.
is one of them
It's a
places where
really
like,
big one.
yeah, my goodness.
Yes, no, I agree with that. And I love what you said because that's how all of my trauma bonds have happened, you know? That's so funny. I love that. Yes.
I like that she brought up COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic can make trauma bonding signs difficult to spot. The pandemic itself is
Mm.
causing a form of collective trauma, Dr. Powell says, because at the start there was a very real threat of death or long term disability from just leaving your house. To survive this threat, we isolated without seeing friends or family for weeks or months at a time. But since, as they say, this is not how humans are designed to operate, the dynamic allowed for trauma bonding relationships to crop up. That part right there. I tell you all the time, we are not meant to just know one person or just sit in the same group of people. Like, yes, having your person is cool, but you are meant to have friends. You're meant to have family. Even if it's not blood relatives, you're meant to create that. And I think that really took a toll on me mentally. And I've seen how it took I have friends that are parents. I've seen how it affected them, like being taken away from their kids, their spouses, their partners, their parents. People's parents were dying and they couldn't get to see them. Like that shit right there. Oh my gosh. Did the pandemic not come and do some motherfucking damage? Like I feel like we survived some zombie apocalypse type shit because it was just doing damage to people.
Absolutely.
Oh
Okay,
my
so
goodness.
this may or may not be off topic.
Yeah.
That's funny. So what do you think about some of the precautions that the Navy implemented to kind of keep us safe or, you know, what they thought was keeping us safe or kind of just minimizing COVID exposure, kind of even solidifying those bonds. So say, for example, the when they kept you guys out, which, was a byproduct of, you guys forming those trauma bonds, or the trauma bonds were a byproduct of you guys staying out. What do you think about the way the Navy kind of went about some of the precautions they took?
That shit was stupid. Um, I tried to find like the good out of it,
Mm-hmm.
but for one, we were being fucking lied to multiple times by
Mm-hmm.
we were being lied to for one, and then the measures that they were taking, like we were out on the fucking water when this shit happened, when this shit started. They had us spraying boxes with like fucking cleaning supplies, wiping fucking cardboard boxes off. We spent hours and hours cleaning a fucking ship that is out to sea. This bitch has not touched land. Like, people are not coming aboard. This shit is not just floating in fucking air and just gonna get on this ship. Like, the way they went about that, and then for you to make a decision to keep a bunch of adults who, y'all love to use the term where you raise your right hand. If I'm an adult and I can be accountable for myself, who are you to tell me that being away from my family is the safest option right now? You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't, it wasn't healthy. It wasn't good. Like, I saw, oh my gosh, it was so bad. I don't think they did a good job at it. I think when they reduced hours and stuff like that, like, yeah, okay, that was cool. Regardless, like, even whenever we did pull in, people still got it. People were saying that they had it and getting off the ship. Y'all were still bringing people onto the ship, so y'all really weren't doing much. It was, at the end of the day, they tried to say it was for the mission and for the better of us, but like, it was all to help them, and I don't think they thought about us as people. I don't think they ever do. I think they expect us to be robots.
Mm.
And I still feel that way. Like, today, y'all still expect me to be a fucking robot. Um, and that's not how we are made to operate. And I don't know. For me, it was not a good experience at all. It was very unenjoyable, very uncomfortable. Like, I remember I had melatonin, and I would take like multiple of them motherfuckers to try to just sleep. Because if I didn't, I would just lay in my rack all until the next watch or until it's time to go to quarters. Like, they didn't do a good job. How about you? What did you think about that when they did it?
So I think that had a ship been in port and then was forced to go out, I understand why they would keep that ship out. Like,
Mm,
I understand why they would keep that ship out, especially if there were people on the ship who now have COVID. Because what I try to do is I try to see the bigger picture. I try to think logically about, like, decisions that are made, or kind of seeing a different perspective. So, like, if I'm the head of the base, so say for example the Yokosuka base, if I'm the head of that base, and I know that a ship just went out, and now they're saying they have COVID on that fucking ship, you can keep that ship out.
yeah.
There's no fucking way I'm gonna endanger all these people on this fucking base. You got me fucked up. You can keep that ship out. So, because then it affects not only myself, but it affects all of these families that don't have COVID that are now on this base. So,
So from what I was seeing, is people were going to shore and people were still being brought back on board the ship. Um, and they put them in like a couple of day quarantines, but it's like those people went into quarantine. The people that went and got them did not go into quarantine. So even then, you still could be affecting us because they were just around them, and then y'all bring them back or bringing people on. But these people are just able to, just go back about their normal working life on a ship. And
right.
I get like how it was meant to, be the most protective way. I just I don't like being lied to. That comes from anybody. And so being lied to, and then also, like, one minute y'all call me an adult, the next minute I'm government property and y'all can do whatever y'all want with me. It doesn't make sense.
No, yeah,
Um,
that doesn't make sense
and
whatsoever.
so that part right there just had me like, eh. It was,
Yeah.
the bond was formed because oh my gosh, morale
Oh God.
was shit. I'll never,
Morale
I'll
in the
never
Navy is
forget.
trash in
Like,
general.
I had literally joined our NWR, or I can't think of the name on the ship or what it is. I
Hmm.
think it is NWR, but I literally joined them so I could come up with events for us to do just as a ship. And I'll never forget, like, one of the events that I helped put together. You know what I did when that event came up? I went to my rack and just laid there, just laid there. Like, I was so mentally just gone. I was like, I can't even enjoy the shit that the fruits of my labor. I can't even enjoy it because I'm just not here. And one of my dear friends, Daniel, he came into birthing at the right moment, and we were able to just sit and talk. And he just talked to me, and like again, that was a bond that was formed off of something
Right.
so bad, but yet we're still able to do it. I will say that this right here talks about like how to deal with trauma bonding. And
Okay.
so trusted friends and family, support groups,
Mhm.
therapists, psychiatrists. One of the things that I did do was I did try to go back. I did go back to therapy, make an attempt. I had a really that was not a good therapist for me, so that was short lived for a little bit. But I did like therapy when I finally got my therapist. You guys, it was really nice. It was healthy. Um, and I don't just like to get hit any therapist. I like to do my own research. I like to ask them questions and like they're asking me questions, like a get to know me kind of thing. They want to know why I'm here. I want to know like what can you do to help me. Um, I did get a psychiatrist as well, and I still communicate with her periodically. But trusted friends and family, having people to still talk to about things was really nice. And I could use it for example. If something pisses us off, even if we don't come to each other in that moment, we do communicate that and kind of like bring that off of ourselves to each other.
Mhm.
And I think that is so healthy because you're not, because if you don't, then you pin it up and it builds up inside of you and, you know, then you dump it onto somebody. And I don't really want to do that. I'd rather, try to talk to the problems as they're coming. And so, a support groups are, I did a grief support group and with all the grief, and I feel like that helped. I did form one bond off of it, one really good friendship right now. Um, and I don't think we were trauma bonded at all because we met outside a group, and we just went to lunch and we've been really good friends since, and we still communicate. We talk daily. We're exchanging gifts now. Like we made some really we made some good way. And that's why I was saying like even if you do meet somebody and it starts off as a negative thing because of something negative around you guys, you are able to turn that into something positive. And
Right.
that should be the goal there is to not sit in the negative of something, but try to make it positive and flip it around.
No, yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
So, we've discovered what trauma bonding is. We've given examples. We've given examples of how it happens. We've given tips on how to overcome the bond, or not the bond, but the traumatic cycle around the bond. And yeah, so we've pretty much hit all the things. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Um if you guys have a trauma bond or you have a relationship that started off as something bad, if you, I want us to think about our bonds. I do that often now, but think about your bonds. And if you met somebody and it wasn't, a good first meeting or, y'all formed a relationship off of something that wasn't so good, is it still not good? Are you feeding each other negativity? Are we trying to make a positive something come out of it? Like, if trauma bonding, yes, it doesn't sound nice, but you can make it into something nice. You just have to put in the work and make sure that you're putting your needs and what you want. Make sure that it's benefiting you. Make sure that you yourself, and I'm not a therapist, this is just me giving my examples, but make sure that it feeds you in a positive way now, not just the negative, like because you've already been there. And yes, shit happens still, but make sure that you're trying to bring that positivity, bring that light if you can. And if somebody or something is dimming your light, then that ain't for you.
Yeah, no shit.
That's all.
I love that. So, guys, we want to thank you again for joining us. Again, comment and tell us what's good. Like, I want to know all the things, whether whether you think you're in a traumatic bond, what can do to get out of it. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that notification bell on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Be sure to leave a review for us. the next so not episode 8, but episode 9, I'm definitely going to put out a little list of our supporters and send a bunch of thank yous out to people who've supported us. And so look out for that. Stay tuned for that. And again, thank you guys so much. Soon, we're going to be doing a giveaway for you guys. So please stay tuned for that. It's going to be a cute little giveaway just for the supporters that we've seen thus far. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love you guys, and we'll see you again soon. Okay?
Bye.
Bye.